Coming up next, it's me, Mike Gallagher, right after Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy on AM 560, The Answer.
Good morning, Dan and Amy. The nice thing about Hillary Clinton being around as long as she's been around is you can almost track the descent of the Democrat Party into cultural Marxist madness just by listening to her pronouncements over the years as she modulates her positions to keep with the times in pursuit of power. Hillary Clinton in 2003 on immigration.
I am, adamantly against illegal immigrants. Certainly, we've got to do more at our borders, and people have to stop employing illegal immigrants.
Wow. That's a little bit different than the song she's singing today. How about 2014 Hillary Clinton, not so long ago, when it comes to matters like turning away families at the border, separating parents from children for the purposes of processing in or out?
Two quick points. One, the numbers are increasing dramatically. And the main reason I believe why that's happening is that the violence in certain of those Central American countries is increasing dramatically. And there is not sufficient law enforcement or will on the part of the governments of those countries to try to deal with this exponential increase in violence, drug trafficking, the drug cartels. And many children are fleeing from that violence.
Should they be able to stay here? It's safer.
It may be safer, but that's not the answer. I do not.
So should they be sent back?
Well, first of all, we have to provide the best emergency care we can provide. We have children 5 and 6 years old who have come up from Central America. We need to do more to provide border security in southern Mexico.
They should be sent back now.
Well, they should be sent back as soon as it can be determined who responsible adults and their families are, because there are concerns about whether all of them can be sent back, but I think all of them who can be should be reunited with their families, and just as Vice President Biden...
Yeah, there you go. And now yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday.
2018 Hillary?
Well, she tweeted what's happening to families at the border right now is a humanitarian crisis. And then she took to the lectern.
Separating families is not mandated by law at all. That is an outright lie.
Mm-hmm. And she wasn't alone. I mean, Laura Bush had that op-ed in the Washington Post. Michelle Obama retweeting it, saying sometimes truth transcends party. So all of the former first ladies are upset with the separation, the zero tolerance policy.
Yeah, and Hillary Clinton played a theologian, too, which is always fun. It's almost as much fun as her on the Emmett Pettus Bridge talking about I ain't in no ways tired, aligning herself with the civil rights movement. For more on this topic, we're pleased to be joined by our friend Heather MacDonald, contributing editor for City Journal, author of The War on Cops, and has opined in City Journal on this topic. I want to get her thoughts. Heather, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan and Amy.
So what about this heartless policy that's been advanced by the Trump administration and articulated by Jeff Sessions, humanitarian crisis, unconscionable to separate parents from their children and the like?
Well, it's Hillary Clinton, her more recent statements is just mushy thinking, and I would say that about Laura Bush and Michelle Obama as well. The fact is that allowing this type of deliberate breaking of the law, using kids as hostages, I mean, they are playing the child card to the hilt, increases ultimately suffering in the world. You have an incentive now for adults, whether they're the parents or not, because there's well-documented stories of basically rent-a-child services to get a child as you're crossing the border to make a ungrounded claim for asylum. If you reward that by saying that, yes, we're carving out an exception to our immigration laws for adults who bring a juvenile with them, you're going to get more of that, putting children at risk and creating a situation of chaos that is good for nobody. So what's going on now is a consequence of adults' decisions. They are the ones that are responsible for separating their children, if it is their children, not the federal government. They're the ones who made the decision to come into the country illegally, knowing that the consequences in most cases is a deportation at the border.
Well, do you think the president, though, is going to flip on this? Because I don't think this is the reality TV show that he wants to be a part of. And you have a growing number of Republicans that are against it. Even, Ted Cruz, Paul Ryan, John McCain, Lisa Murkowski. I mean, people want this to stop. And both bills now address kids being separated from their parents, the conservative and the moderate bill before Congress.
Yeah, sadly, Amy, I do think the president will flip. I don't think he has particularly deep principles or a deep understanding of how the law works and how the enforcement of the law works as a deterrent. I think he is absolutely a weathercock and will change according to the sense of whether the media is movable on this or not. But I support those within his administration, such as Jeff Sessions and Stephen Miller, who realize that taking a short-term response to this, looking at pictures of children crying on the border, is not the way to make policy. The way to make policy is fair and neutral rules and enforcing them fairly and neutrally and not carving out exceptions. To me, what is the most astounding thing is not really the flip-flops of Hillary, because, frankly, any party in power is going to exploit, and out of power is going to exploit the tools available to it. But it's why the left is so determined to get residents of third world countries, people of color, into the U.S. in the first place. Because the left is the body of activists and professors and journalists who are telling us nonstop that there is no more bigoted, misogynist, oppressive, racist place on earth than the United States. You have Ta-Nehisi Coates saying that the very DNA of America is the destruction of black bodies. You have every academic saying that, to be a college student, a female college student, is to experience a tsunami of sexual violence, and that America is a rape culture. So why are they so determined to bring in people, whether it's females who, if you believe the left, will simply be exchanging a local patriarchy for the United States one, or if it's blacks, will be exchanging their purportedly Pacific, calm, civil peace ridden country for one that is out to destroy them. The left is completely hypocritical in its open borders mode, which contradicts its America as the source of all evil mode.
Well, but they obviously, why they want to do that, why they're willing to endure that paradox is because they want that electorate here, and they want to make America into some third world, socialist authoritarian regime. Apparently, that's certainly the philosophy that you hear on college campuses and from some of the assorted coalition partners of the left you described.
That is absolutely their agenda. I completely agree. Nevertheless, they turn on a dime and drop the rhetoric of racial victimology and oppression in order to then say that America is the only source of opportunity and hope, and portray us as this beacon of openness when they want to shoehorn as many of these left-leaning third world, low-skilled people here that will demand greater government and transform the culture.
Well, the thing that's remarkable to me about this is I understand that, politicians are going to demagogue issues, then are going to play the sentimentalism game and use, emotional examples to move popular opinion. But the reflection of the rule of law and actually the laws on the books is completely absent from media coverage. So, for example, the Flores consent decree from 1997 says unaccompanied children can only be held for 20 days. A ruling by the Ninth Circuit extended this 20-day limit to children who come as part of family units. So even if we want to hold a family unit together, the government is forbidden by law from doing so. So we're talking about 20 days, and you cannot hold a family unit together by law. And that is almost nowhere in the coverage of this story.
Yeah, it's pure. It's like watching sort of communist propaganda in action. They are going completely for the emotions. I mean, it's just hilarious to see the coverage on MSNBC and CNN. They know they have, for them and for much of the country, a winning issue, and they have the bit in the teeth, and they are running with it with as much maudlin coverage as they can. And you know, it's sad that so many otherwise conservative politicians are buckling under on this. It just shows, you know, it seems like the race card is the most powerful thing you can play, but I think perhaps the child card trumps everything else.
So there's two bills before Congress. Do you think the Democrats are going to move on any of this?
I think they have power. I think that at this point they'll probably hold out for as much as they can get as far as an amnesty and DACA. You know, I don't know whether this, you know, it was foreseeable and shouldn't have been undertaken. I support Jeff Sessions so much. I think he's the most important person in the Trump administration. He is absolutely determined to restore the immigration rule of law. Whether, however, this was a crisis that was foreseeable and they should have somehow avoided it because of knowing the melodramatic possibilities is hard to say.
In your column, you address an area where Sessions was criticized specifically, as he has been generally, on immigration enforcement. The idea of not granting asylum to alleged victims of domestic violence. You argue that makes perfect sense. Explain.
Well, yes. The whole concept of asylum is that you are granting it to individuals who are persecuted by their government for membership in a socially distinct group. The idea is that if you're under a persecuting government, there is literally no escape. And as a humanitarian gesture, we're going to reach out and give you some sort of relief from that. But domestic violence is not a government issue. It's a private crime. And it simply does not fall under the traditional understanding of asylum. This is something that has been pushed by the feminists as a way to get more third world people of color in. And it has been grotesquely exploited. I mean, the asylum claims have increased 1,700% over a 8-year period because people are bringing these trumped-up charges, and we now have a backlog in the immigration courts of 300,000 that is bad for everybody. There are legitimate asylum seekers who are not getting justice.
Right. Of course, exactly. Heather MacDonald, contributing editor for City Journal, author of the book The War on Cops. Her most recent piece at city-journal.org, America the Horrible? Heather, thanks so much for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan and Amy.
And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.